All right. I guess that's my cue, isn't it?
It is.
I'm Alyssa. I'm the reading series coordinator. Thank you guys so much for making the time on your Wednesday to do a first Zoom call. We are in the era of Zoom. So I'm thankful that you guys are all here. We're really thrilled to have three incredible voices tonight. We have Joshua Winn, Angela Narciso Torres, and Sarah M. Sala. And we'll be starting with Joshua, who, sorry, my screen is freezing. I'm so sorry. All right. Joshua Winn is a Vietnamese-American writer, a collegiate national poetry slam champion with CUPSI, and a native Houstonian. He has received fellowships from Kundiman, Sundress Academy for the Arts, and the Vermont Studio Center. He has been published in The Offing, Wildness, Button Poetry, The Texas Review, Auburn Avenue, Crab Orchid Review, Gulf Coast, and Hot Metal Bridge. He is a PhD student at the University of Mississippi, where he also received his MFA. He is a bubble tea connoisseur and works in a kitchen. All right, Joshua, thank you.
Thanks. Thanks for the intro. Thanks, Aaron. I'm actually at the SAFTA residency right now.
Welcome.
This is not my office. This is the incredible office slash study slash computer room in the SAFTA farmhouse. That's G over there, a residency roommate. I can see the farm right now. It's an amazing place. And when I got here, I learned that there's a cat they get to feed that we never see. So in spirit of that cat, I figured to read this first poem. It's called My Cat Doesn't Grasp Object Permanence. When the room is ever empty, that means you are dead. If you are dead, who will give me discarded boxes? Whose books will I brush my face upon until you get all worked up and yell, "This is my reading time." When the shower curtain divides us, that means you've drowned, and I'll be left to lick the bathwater. You go to work, and I sleep for 20 hours in hopes that you wake me earlier with the sound of the stuck jiggle of your key in the cave of your forearms. I know what the temperature of your hands mean. Too hot means turn on the oven and make biscuits. Too cold, and I know you just had them inside your underwear. Too around my neck, and I know my nails need to be cut, so I claw into you. Not your face, no. I know that you need to match your author photo so you can feed both of us. I make your forearms bleed, just a little, just in case you leave for work and get mauled by a boar. Just in case you close the bedroom door, the carpet catches on fire and the window is impenetrable. I just want to make sure that this is my final sight of you. That part of me bleeds into your blood, so you don't have to die alone. Can people hear me, by the way? I kind of saw things in the chat that people couldn't hear. I don't know if it's my microphone or if it's just...
I hear you.
Oh, you hear me? All right, cool.
All right. Yeah, we're having a couple issues. For those of you who can't hear, I will work on that and see what's going on.
Cool, thanks. So I'm gonna read the next two poems back to back because they're kind of heavy. And the second one is a huddle. This first one is called Wisconsin is in my heart. I just wanted to let go. Thomas tells me that trauma is trite. That to open up wounds is to bleed yourself out. Snow in Wisconsin blocks the front door of my cousin's house. In the north, the foyer has stairs up and down. The basement in broad daylight is a gray sky. A groaning fly by my ear. The only other noise besides the flinching of my arms, my cousin's breath heavy on my neck. Heavy on my neck, my cousin's breath. the flenching of arms, a fly by my ear. The only other noise beside the basement in broad daylight is the sky groaning gray. In the north, the foyer has stairs covered up and down in snow. Wisconsin blocks the front door of my cousin's house. It opens up wounds. Bleed yourself out, Thomas tells me. Trauma is trite. Come clean, a hustle. Come clean, a hustle. I lied. I said Wisconsin, but it was a much colder place, let's say Washington. Truth be told, it was next to a river that led to a dam, that led to a wash. I changed the name to protect the state my family resides, where they'll read this in a house that was once washed away by a flood. I said I blame my cousin, but in fact, I blame myself. I said I blame the basement, but I blame the washer that ruined the sound of doing laundry, the violent tumbling of my body down the stairs, a wet ball of clothing, a washer falling from the wall through the drain and out the sink in Chicago, where I'm 13, laying bare on an unwashed dorm room comforter, stuck between a bunk bed and a 20-year-old body, the roaring wash of applause of her friends cheering her on, a container too hot, the pine wood of me melting inwards, the garlic of her breath washing my innocence with too much bleach, too much white on the sheets, like a massage table, like watching the ground as the masseuse reaches for the extra tip to feed her family. How my body walked out washed in a white robe, my boy mouth telling my uncle the dirty thing that happened to me as he continues to watch the Ao Yais on the street in Vietnam, says, relax, we're on vacation, you're a man now. Our happy ending money washed and laundered. When I get back home, I fold all my laundry into neat pillars on my bed. I place my body into the washer. I am a spin cycle of a fetus, playing a game of hide and crease. I win when my stained teeth are all that's left to wash.
Thank you.
Thanks. My roommate can't hear me. It's okay. He knows these poems. Aaron had to send poems, and then of course last minute I sent another file of like different poems because I'm just in a different headspace right now because the whole news, and I'm thinking a lot about like Asian American compliancy and like bystander effect, and how, you know, Asian people in America can be fucked up too and benefit from white supremacy and everything. Just thinking about like my own like Asian people, like in my life that like, you know, I wish I could change, but I can't right now. I can try. Anyways, this is a poem to hopefully help those I guess Asian people dealing with confronting people in their lives that are also like compliant and like being bystanders. Anyways, this is called I Tell My Aunt to Take Off the Stupid Red Hat, and she tells me that you and your siblings married white-looking people, so shut up and eat this boombalhue I made. You ungrateful son of a generous woman who should be ashamed to call you a son. The only immigrants that I want in this country are those who are almost starved on a boat fleeing a country. Finish your food or vomit into the dog bowl, and I'll plastic wrap for you later. Leave your bowl in the sink and go kneel in front of the fireplace with your forehead resting on the tips of the flames. You're only good as a white wedge that can prop us, i.e. white people, up and away you go, listening to Black people music, copying Black culture to the best of your ability. Stand like your uncle in front of the police scene. Say nothing to protect your job, to protect your pockets, to protect our image, because in America, will never be looked upon as American. So if everyone is against you, then might as well choose the winning side, winning side. Might as well use that model minority to your liking. You like banh mi, right? You like what French colonization can taste like. You like bread ripping the roof of your mouth, bite, chew, repeat until it bleeds the threads of my hat you despise so much. You can have your morals. I'll collect the warm puddle of you and place it in my pho to sell at my restaurant to the highest white police officer. I'll watch them choke on the broth, kneel on the neck bones they have lodged in the back of their throats, and sell them water to wash it down, just so they can stay alive and come back the next day hungry for.
Wow. That was excellent.
And on a lighter note, so G and I, so in the morning here, we have to like pick the eggs off the ground, the duck and the chicken eggs, you know, that fun stuff. And we eat a lot of eggs. I mean, eggs every meal. So I've been also, so this poem is called Peeling the Eggs. And it's American lukbat, and a lukbat is a Vietnamese traditional form that I've been like researching and trying to adopt for like contemporary times. So I call them American lukbats. So this is called Peeling the Eggs. This is my last poem. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Peeling the Eggs. When you are 6 or 8, come in the kitchen. Take the spot to the left of the pot, still warm from those eggs, bought, boiled, and cooled. Love, you're old enough now to unfold the skin back on these white shells. Love, your little fingers dig gently. Observe the cracks you create on the backs of these eggs, but don't act too fast. Be patient with the task. Love, 2 light bounces are all you need to begin the unveiling. The skin shedding itself from the journey, the impact of egg in your hand towards the counter it lands, coax the fatigued and transfer it under the still faucet. My child, my love, a little water can save you from tiny shards in your thumb. Thanks.
Thank you, Joshua. Before we go to our next reader, I wanted to invite our community outreach director, Arlen Dunn, to talk about our community partner for the month of May. Let's see if I can unmute her.
I think Arlen may have gotten booted. I'm going to text her, and we might bring her on after the following reading.
Okay. All right. Our next reader will be Angela Narciso Torres. And Angela Narciso Torres is the author of Blood Orange with Willow Books Literature, and it won the award for poetry. To the Bone with Sundress Publications in 2020, and What Happens Is Neither with 4 White Books coming in 2021. Recent work appears in Poetry, Missouri Review, and PANK. A graduate of Warren Wilson MFA Program for Writers and Harvard Graduate School of Education, Angela has received fellowships from Bread Loaf Writers Conference, Illinois Arts Council, and Ragdale Foundation. She serves as a senior and reviews editor for RHINO Poetry. Born in Brooklyn and raised in Manila, she resides in South Florida.
Do I start?
Yes, thank you, Angela.
Thank you so much for inviting me to read here tonight. It's really quite an honor to be part of the first Sundress virtual reading series. And it's especially poignant for me because the book, which Sundress kindly published in March, came out right before the lockdown. And so a lot of my reading events this year had been canceled. And as everyone knows, it's really hard to launch a book during a pandemic. So yes, To the Bone was published last March, and I'm just very thrilled to be reading from it for the first time in a Zoom event since it came out. The book is really based off of my mom's decline to dementia, and it's a book about loss. It's part elegy and part meditation on loss, which is really the essential condition of being human. And I'm sure all of us are pretty aware of that right now, going through this pandemic. So the book looks through the lens of me as an immigrant, as a daughter, as a mother. I'm the mother of 3, and also as a writer living in America as an Asian American. today is also very special for me because it's actually my mom's first death anniversary. She passed last year on May 27. So when Erin asked me to read on this date, I was like, wow, this is definitely my mom's doing, because she would want me to be celebrating today and not grieving. Of course, I am grieving and mourning still, but she loved parties. She was always the life of the party. This is my mom when she was much younger. I think she might have been in high school in this picture. And aside from being a great cook, she was also a musician and a physician who was instrumental in starting the blood bank in the Philippines. And she worked with children with leukemia, she the cancer field as well in research. So she was quite the career woman, but also someone who loved to entertain. So this reading will be like kind of like a tribute to her. My first poem is the first poem in the book, and it's called If You Go to Bed Hungry. And it's really a poem about the superstitions I was raised with as a child, who, of course, my mother was responsible for. She and her sisters and her mother and grandmother told us all these like bits of folklore, elderly wisdom that, I don't know, some of them were pretty scary and were the stuff of my nightmares. And for some reason, you know, as she started to decline, I just collected all these little bits of wisdom, information, recipes, anything that I could hold on to as her memory began to fail. So this poem was published in Poetry Magazine last March, and another first for me. And I was really excited and also a little bit surprised that they picked it, because it's not one of the poems that's very representative of my style. But anyway, here it is. If you go to bed hungry. If you go to bed hungry, your soul will get up and steal cold rice from the pot. Stop playing with fire before the moon rises, or you'll pee in your sleep. Sweeping the floor after dark sweeps wealth and good fortune out the door. Fork dropped, a gentleman will visit. Spoon, a bashful lady. Bathing after you've cooked over a hot stove makes the veins swell. For safe passage to the guest who leaves mid-meal, turn your plate. The adage goes, coffee stunts growth. 12 grapes on New Year's, the opposite. Advice from the learned, book under your pillow. Never step on, never drop. Every rice grain that remains on your plate, you'll meet again on the footpath to heaven. You'll have to stoop to pick each one of them up. So the very first one, line of this poem, if you go to bed hungry, your soul would get up and steal cold rice from the pot. That terrified me as a child. Sometimes it still does, because there's a second part. So if you go to bed hungry, which I think my mom did because I was such a poor eater, she told me this so that I would eat something before going to sleep. If your soul is out there scrounging around for food in the kitchen and for some reason the rice pot falls on your soul, that's it, you're dead. Your soul will never get back to your body. And you know, this is my mom, the medical person, telling me that I could die from blunt trauma to the soul. So yeah, she was a woman of contradictions. And that's just one of the few things that made her so special. This is another poem dedicated to her, and it's called Sundowning, which is, the title refers to a symptom of an Alzheimer's patient who starts to get more disoriented or confused as the sun goes down, as many of you know. My mother, as she got to the later stages of Alzheimer's, I still could see some of her traits from when she was still completely herself. Like she loved to give me things. When I would visit her, she lived in the Philippines, so I would visit her at least once a year if I could. And she loved to give me things. Like she would dig into her closet of trinkets and pull something out and say, here, I want to give you this. On the last visit, when she still kind of had her wits about her, she called me, she said, come here, I have something to give you. And she gave me this really curious thing. It's a little beer mug from Cuba. I don't even know where she got it because I know she's never been. I've never been. And I was like, okay, thank you. I really appreciate that. So anyway, this beer mug from Cuba is one of the last things my mother gave me. And it comes out in this in this poem in a different form. I change it into a thimble. Seamus Heaney once said that in poems, small things can bear the weight of anything. So I thought the smaller the better. It's also a little more, I don't know, I just like the image of thimble. And the truth is always overrated anyway. It doesn't have to be truthful in the poem, right? All right, so Sundowning from my mother, Carmen. Just checking my timer here. The sweetest meat clings to the bone, my mother says, knifing her steak. Carmen, silver spade on my tongue. Mahjong nights, her father and mother gone, she cried herself to sleep, blamed in the morning for her mother's losing hand. Unlucky tears. The sweetest meat she begins at dinner, tearing off a drumstick. What will she recall by morning? Named for Our Lady of Mount Carmel, she pinned brown scapulars under our shirts, wet stamps that cleaved to our backs. Carmen, prayer on the breath. Amid potted ferns, she works a jigsaw puzzle, Bizet on the radio. Unable to sleep, she made me lie next to her. My brothers clambered the banyan trees. My legs twitched, a broken clock. Her kisses are guava and rust. She sings Kundiman's her mother sang, Sampagita, dahil sa'yo, saan ka man. Sunday morning, puzzle pieces strewn on yesterday's news. Maria Callas on the phonograph. Carmen, citrine fire. When she plays the piano, the lovebirds fall silent. Alabaster eggs tremble in glass bowls. Afternoons, she woke with an urge to bite the brown loaf of my arm. The marks on my flesh faded by sundown. The sweetest meat clings, she insists. Peels a mango. Amber rivers trace her elbows. A trail of l'air du temps wafts in her wake. I follow it to her room. Dab the scent on my wrists and throat. Evenings, she sang Kundimans. Hating gabi, nasaan ka ilog? Carmen, song of the mangosteen moon. Before you go, I want to give you something. She hands me a thimble painted with a map of Cuba. We've never been to Cuba. In the dream, a sister pours rosary beads into her cupped hands. Upon waking, a dead wasp curled in her palm. So I thought it'd be fun if I changed my scenery a bit. Since, you know, we can only do this in a virtual reading, we can't do it in a live reading, so you might as well take a little tour of my little writing room here in South Florida. The last image of that poem was the rosary beads, and my mother was, aside from being superstitious, was also a very devout Catholic, and she prayed the rosary a lot. This was a rosary that she gave me, and when I found it after she died, I noticed that it was actually broken. It's supposed to be attached here like a loop with the 5 decades in a circle, a crown of roses. It's made of rose petals that have been dried and pressed into little balls. And I'm not a very good devout praying kind of Catholic. I don't pray the rosary every night, but my mom and dad certainly did. And so I keep these around me like a talisman kind of, this rosary. I bring a small version of it in my pocket wherever I go. So I'd like to read this poem called Self-Portrait as Rosary Beads. Curled amid lint and loose change, tucked in a jacket's satin lining or crushed with used gum in seams of denim, I've known pain clinics and airports, taxi cabs and stale schoolrooms where time is a honeycomb in winter. I'm olive wood, carnelian, plastic, black onyx. I'm rosebuds pressed into fragrant spheres. Your heat is my musk, your worry, my fire. Pick your mystery. If Tuesday, sorrowful. If Saturday, glorious. I've held you in grocery lines, picket lines, the hours between sleepless and woken. Hold me. I am glass, shattered, smooth by my mother's nerve, pillowed beneath her cheek. Counted, accountable, counting, counted on. crystallized, dangled on a string, or hung from a mirror in a river of traffic, praying for green, for an end, for a mutiny of rain. Litany of sorrows, praise, I'm a crown of roses, a crown of purple thorns. I'm faithful as breadcrumbs on barbed wire. Lose me to birds or to night-starred thicket. Touch and be splintered, sundered, soothed, surrendered. My scent on your fingertips. So I thought I'd take a break from reading from the book. I think I have about maybe 5 minutes left, and I'll probably read just 2 more poems. I know that a lot of us are far away from our loved ones. I have 2 sons living in California, so opposite coast. And this is a poem I wrote one of those sleepless nights, which I know that we're all having. And thinking about my son who lives in LA, and he's living independently. He's in his 20s. He's my oldest son. And he has a cat named Pau. This poem is called Insomnia. I'll just take a drink of water. Insomnia. Awake beneath an onyx sky, you crack the blinds, inhale night's fading ink. The air is your mother's breath on your skin. The only steeple is the church of palms in the neighbor's yard, dropping vermilion fruit on the grass. On another coast, everyone you know is sleeping, except for a boy you love. In his body ticks a clock that matches yours. Darkness seeps from the blades of palmetto, the way water leaves your fingers after a bath. To see the darkness, one must look darkly. Hours later, this boy will feed his cat, perform his daily ministrations like a mother. What is parenting but a prayer for one's young? Outside, the white ibis of dawn unfurls the potted mint, its ribbons of scent. Sun, your shadow lives in my eyes. I'm sorry, it's allergy season here in Florida. Excuse me. Everything is blooming here, and it's been raining so much, which is why the rocket launch today, Elon Musk's space shuttle, the first manned space shuttle, which was supposed to take off today, some miles from here, was canceled. I guess they're going to do it on Saturday now. Okay, I think I only have time for 1 more poem, so I'll read my last poem from this part of the room because I'd like to show you something else. Pardon my rearranging here. So my last poem is also, I had a poem about my dog, but she doesn't want to sit on the couch, so I'm not going to read it. She's over there. I'm going to skip the dog poem. But my last poem is actually also Into the Bone. And it's the title of my forthcoming full-length collection. The title of this poem is. It's called What Happens Is Neither. The full length is coming out next year with 4-way books, and I'm very grateful that they accepted this poem shortly after I lost my mother. And the other sad part of the story is my father also passed away 11 days after my mom died. They were joined at the hip. He died of a broken heart, and that's all it really was. But before I read it, I just want to show you something. So when my parents died and we were talking about, oh, there goes my timer. Sorry.
It's okay.
I'll be quick. So I inherited my dad's violin because I used to play piano to his violin playing after my mom lost her dexterity. And they played music together all their lives. So really the violin and music was our only connection with her in those last days. I mentioned that because it's relevant to the poem. What happens is neither. What happens is neither the end nor the beginning. Yet we're wired to look for signs. Consider the peonies. One makes a perfect bud after months of nothing. Another's leaves are ringed with black rot. How can I not think end? How can I not say beginning? Leaves fall when days shorten because the tree must reduce to its tough parts: twig, branch, bark. My mother sleeps away the daylight. She nods off while chewing a spoonful of fish and rice, her head a peony gone to seed. My father calls to say she doesn't recognize him. Turning to him, she cried out, certain a stranger was in her bed. He played his violin till she slept, a leaf in late fall curling into itself. In autumn, chlorophyll disappears, canceling green from the leaves, so yellow and magenta can blaze. In my mirror, I see her, the smile that favors a cheek, eyes slanting in the shape of small fish we eat for breakfast. Trees know best than now of things. What goes on has been going on for centuries. Washing dishes, I rest a foot on my standing leg. A fork clangs on the tile. I rinse a cracked cup. I try not to think of endings. Thank you. And thank you, Sundress, for having me. Thank you, Erin, Priscilla, and Joshua for that fabulous reading. I can't wait to hear you, Sarah. Thanks for being
here. Thank you so much, Angela.
Welcome.
Sorry, I interrupted someone. But our next reader will be Sarah M. Sala, who is a poet, educator, and native Michigander. She is the founding director of Office Hours Poetry Workshop, assistant poetry editor for the Bellevue Literary Review, and teaches expository writing at New York University. Her debut poetry collection, Devil's Lake, is forthcoming in August 2020 from Tolson Books. Thank you, Sarah.
Hey everyone, thank you for being here. Thank you, Joshua and Angela, for beautiful readings. So yeah, I'm gonna read from the new collection. It's forthcoming in August, but I hear through the grapevine, if you pre-order it, you get it early. So as I was listening to my bio, I was like, it is summertime. I am not an educator anymore. Just on break. So this first poem is called Hydrogen. You want to talk bang? Hydrogen was there at 0000 hours in the coke-colored velodrome of dark matter. Gases checking gases ad infinitum. Chartreuse flare, then a deafening birth. Ions of cosmos cartwheeling pink, red, yellow, green, purple, blue, black in the sphere of night. First, I was a star. Then a stain of water. Then a kindergartner. So I would say the themes in this book, there's a lot of science in here too. I would say it's like gun violence or just violence in the American landscape, and queerness in nature. This next poem is called Nature versus Nature. It's after a Leanne Maxey painting. Before I was born, my original face radiated light, weather, organisms, landforms, celestial bodies. Everything untouched by humans. And there's a second way to read it. I call it like the secret, like on the page reading. It just has superscripts. I'm like, it's summer vacation. What are superscripts called? I don't know anything anymore. It's great. Before I was born, my original face was queer too. Radiated light, weather, organisms, landforms, celestial bodies, unbound by nature, everything untouched by humans. This is a poem about a really early date with my partner when a toddler kind of bullied us in the park. Don't mess with little kids. Before Much Ado About Nothing. When I read a poem that fucks me up with its gorgeousness, I don't want to be the poet. I want to be the poem. I'm sorry for bumping into your mom, kid. It was summer in New York City. Little white face, you craned back your head to face the accuser. In the afterlife, I'll be a poem, just a plain sheet of typing paper, bludgeoned with ink. The one that captures the tar green tenderness in your eyes, hardened with daughterly outrage. Just like, watch where you're going in the park, or a little kid will stare you down for messing with your mom. This one's called On My Back. This is also after a painting with Leanne Maxey. Yay for ekphrastic poetry. I dare you to try to spell that. American insults lie in the body. They flail across the knife. I study the green air plants threaded across a chain link fence. The matchsticks of your life, startled, clean, and blazing. Observe a palette of flesh tones disappear into starless denim. Reduction, its own form of bloodshed. So much depends upon the landscape before its wildness leaches away. The viewer's assumptions thrown back at her as if to say, my queerness is the most natural thing I inhabit. This next poem, I actually was working on at Sundress. It used to be 6 pages long and had a different title. And they say before you finish a book, the weight of God sits on it. And you're just like, I gotta figure this out. So this went from 6 pages to 2 pages, and it's a horizontal poem. I like the idea of a book as objects. So you have to turn it as you're reading. American ammunition, and it begins with an epigraph here. With our revolutionary safe action trigger system, the G17 9x19 pistol is safe, easy, and quick. Just what you need in high pressure situations. Glock.com. 1. A public cafeteria. The ghost of my heart gorges herself on spent ammunition. The Orlando medical examiner processed each of the 49 Pulse victims apart from the gunman. Even amid gravitational collapse, surviving atoms couldn't reanimate with him. 2. I forget my hands in the grocery store. 10 ring digits in a bed of Brussels sprouts. My voice becomes a skateboard ramp. Weather balloons eclipse my eyes. Sudden questions plague me. What is a border crossing? What longitude and latitude in the cosmos do our loved ones recycle toward? 3. Empty classrooms become scenarios. I am a cartographer of stairwells, an apostle of pony walls. A ghost appears seeking household items, pauses before the nightstand, opens the drawer to rifle past hand creams, nail files, paperback books. Over here, I say, are you my afterlife? 4. In a dream, I ward off the shooter with blossoms, cobalt, fuchsia, burnt orange, mustard, turquoise, lime, mallard, gargoyle, snow, oyster, bourbon. A carpet of fragrance to barricade the steel doors. And then this poem I wrote while I was working a terrible job in the textile industry. It's called A Rainstorm Reminded Me Why I Love. When I heard wife, my belly went reverent with breath. I was organizing upholstery swatches when the sky broiled the streets in an ancient lake of steam. I sensed your body bed down beside mine on a cool night, and it left me full and wanting. Kissing you felt like the shiver of athletic prowess sideswiped by the pleasure of language. Marriage equality didn't exist until a year into our marriage. We weren't going to abandon our attractions, but swerve into them. All right. It's really nice to read from a book because you don't have to like print things and like bring them places. Like you just have to have like Post-its, which is cool. I was like intimidated by reading from a book, but I was like, no, this is better. This is cool. I don't have to be organized. I think I will just do like 2 more poems. I haven't read this one into reading yet. It's another horizontal poem. The image surprises. Great-grandmother with night-water black hair braided down her back. Aunt who learned at her mother's funeral the native tribes we descend from, now losing photons of her brain to dementia. Blood isn't culture. If it were, I'd know how to prepare a Polish New Year's feast, a lucky silver fish. My other great-grandmother donated her body to science in Detroit, returned in 1987 as an urn we kept in the closet beside the board games. Whenever I stole inside for hide and seek or a blanket, I whispered, hello. Lots of people think I only have 2 sisters, but there's a third. I used to joke, I'm not gay, my girlfriend is, until a priest advised my sister to absent my wedding. Now I carry a picture of her like a missing persons report I could file at any moment. So I try to tell you a story. It's easier to say, a man loved blues so much he married a blueberry and rolled her all the way to France, than it is to say, sequence is a binding thread, and we're all just trying not to spin off into the moon. This last little ditty is a series of erasures. I like to end on them because they're punchy and fun. They're like, get loose, it's Wednesday night, we're on the Zooms. So this is called On Receiving a Homophobic Letter, a series of erasures. If you're not familiar with an erasure, it's basically you take a text and you black out whatever you don't feel like. You're like, whatever, editorialize, and you just leave the words that you want to come through. So when we sent out invites for our wedding, we got a little fan mail back. And instead of just keeping that shame or whatever feelings private, I was like, let's publish it. Let's do something with this. All right. Version 1. My dear, I wish I spent more time living, but I've never understood how.